Atlantia vivere, Atlantia vincere, Atlantia victor, Atlantia vivere, Agartha vivere, Shambhala vivere, Lemuria vivere. My dear friends, it is Saturday night, Saturday evening, 9:35 o'clock p.m. in Romania. And I heard today some very disturbing news from Belgium to show you how thick, how sick our society really is. Maybe how thick the skulls of some people or their minds. There is a young girl, a young woman, age 21 in Belgium, who asked to be killed because she is depressed. She is suffering from no physical illnesses. She can make children. She can be a good wife. She can have 15 or 20 children. She can work. But her family and herself want her to be put to death, to be killed. And there was a council of 3 physicians who approved this. And I read it in the news that 50 to 60 Belgians each year are put to death because of mental problems in Belgium. And around 1,400 people are put to death in Belgium at their request because they are suffering from various illnesses and because they say that their suffering is too much for them to bear. Well, this has never happened in Lemuria or in India. I know, yes, you say about the Indians that they are dirty, that there are many, that they spread like rats all over the place, that they steal, the gypsies steal, but at gypsies, at Indians, this has never happened. Yes, we have women who are burned alive when their husbands died. Also, this habit was in the Viking Empire. There was a king who passed away at the age of 43, and he had a wife, age 35, who did not want to be burned alive with him. And then his second wife, who was only 16 years old, ran to the boat, and she said that she wants to be burned alive with him. And yes, they made the ship float away, and they set the boat on fire with a flaming arrow, and the boat was full with oil and wood. And this shows how our society needs that reset, that reset, that planetary reset that the Illuminati fear and say, no reset, what should we do? Shall we continue in this manner? And I want to talk to you today about trade, because the reason Greece is not bankrupt yet is because most of their debt are fake money. They are false money. Because when I produce one computer and I sell it, because it is meaningless for a firm to produce 1,000 computers or a million or a billion computers and stuff some warehouses with them and do nothing with them. Those computers only have meaning when they help people. So you have to sell those computers to people who actually need them, and you have to take from those people the things that they do not need. So the purpose in life actually is to take away from people or nations or firms the things that they have extra, they have too much of, and to give them things that they need. For instance, during the British Empire, and I will tell you now how the Americans got to be the slaves of the British. The British Empire had 2 big colonies, India and America. In India, the Indians produced a lot of tea and a lot of salt. And they exported that tea and salt with 1 pence or 2 pences per ton in Britain. And from Britain, the British took whatever they need from tea and salt, and then the ships went on to America. And they sold that tea and salt with 1,000 more or 10,000 more the price. They sold the tea very expensive in America, about 2 or 3 times more expensive than in Britain. But this was not the case why America, because America was colonized basically for exploiting its riches. Here in Europe, countries were poor. In the Industrial Revolution, all the woods, all the forests in Britain were cut down, all the animals were killed. The coal and iron was used to build railroads. So Britain was with no food, because the oil is scarce, because Britain is a small island it is a big island actually in Northern Europe, and they had the frost during the small winter season. the small glacial period between 500 AD and 1500 AD, and they learned that they have to import food. And now they learn that they also have to import everything else, all the raw materials. So in order to sell, in order to buy raw materials and food, they have to sell industrial products. And in order to have industrial products, they need industry. And of course, in order to have industry, they need to exploit the small raw resources to build that industry up. And in America we had a much larger population because it was a vast continent. We had diamonds and gold and silver and wood and coal and oil and all the animals and so on. And people in America, they hunted out Indians, and the Indians sold their furs to the locals, to the Americans, and the Americans in certain colonies, they sold their furs and their wood and all their riches for a few pennies to the British Empire. And so the Britons took away all the furs, all the wood, everything that the Americans had extra, and took them to Britain and to Europe and sold them for 1,000 times more, or 30 times more, or 100 times more, or 200, 300 times more. Yes? And in this manner the British Empire was maintained, because Britain is a small island after all. And now the population of Britain, and then America and all the countries in the New World industrialized themselves. And the Americans started to build ships for themselves, and it was no longer possible to maintain this trade. And so they had to devise new ways to maintain the Americans and the people in Brazil and Mexico and Canada and all the other colonies, their slaves, not only the slaves of the British Empire, but also the slaves of the Portuguese Empire, the Spanish Empire, the French Empire, and so on. All the nations in Europe. Also, Italy had some possessions in Congo and Zimbabwe. Why do you think that Greece has joined the illustrious club, like Iserescu said, that if Romania goes bankrupt towards IMF, we will join the illustrious club of countries who are in debt towards IMF. And those countries are Zimbabwe, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, where Tarzan was born, and the unified empire, the unified great empire of Ethiopia and Eritrea. You know, Ethiopia is an empire who has recently conquered Eritrea. Both countries are in Africa, of course, my horse. And so, countries in Europe have exploited the other countries in the world for resources, because, yes, you know the situation of Europe. Although Europe is a green continent seen from space, and a lot of agriculture can be made here if we will lose our status, and we will lose our status because China is rising. So now we are living in a world where all the countries are getting industrialized. And we are living in a world like in a sand-space game. Everyone is building colonies and they're starting to produce lots of iron and aluminum and titanium and stuff and electronics and mechanical parts and titanium and superconducting cores and graphene and core sampling cores and mining robots and farming robots and so on. So everyone is producing everything. All the industrial stuff was moved to China, to Taiwan. People in Japan were like people in Greece. They had no raw materials, the soil was bad for agriculture, but they used their sand. And they made electronics. People in Greece did not know how to make electronics. Or they did not care. So in Greece we have olive production, wine production, small wine production. Greece imports about 50% or more of their grains and food. So in order for Greece to sustain herself, they needed to trade. We needed to trade. And to trade means exactly like that, to go to Phoenicia, to Israel, and to get whatever they have extra, which are olives and wine and stuff, and to sell them water, because they don't have, and stuff which needs water, like grains and vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. And to go to Dacia and take stuff which the Dacians or people here, like Iliescu said, the ducks come from the trucks. He meant to say that the Dacians come from the Thracians or Thracians. Anyway. And so here in Dacia, people had a lot of gold and a lot of honey, and a lot of wheat and a lot of sheeps, not sheeps, and they behave like a flock of sheep, and they sold the wool and the honey and the gold to Elada, to Greeks. And the Greeks took them and they took that gold and the wool and so on in other places of the world which needed them. So Greece now and still has one of the largest merchant fleets in the world, together with Panama and Philippines, but you know, except those third world countries, Greece actually has the ships. So they own the ships. You can sell your ship under the flag of Martinica or Hawaii Islands or whatever. Not Hawaii Islands is an American state, but you can sail your ship under the flag of Filipinos, Islands of Panama, which are actually the central of Lemuria before the nuclear war 50,000 years ago. And you will pay lower rates, lower taxes. But you know, the Greeks actually have the ships which are sailing under various flags, and they transport stuff. So the Greek Elada will still be needed. The Greek ships will still be needed, even if the whole world economy collapses and all the money lose their weight. Because you know, the Americans have now 1.4 or 1.5 quadrillion dollars in debt on derivative, because the British Empire, they started to produce money to make money. So they started to make debts to place you know, to bet. They place bets on the fact that other countries and other colonies will go extinct or not, will go bankrupt or not, and several individuals. So they have created money, but by creating money in their own Saxon way of thinking, they don't understand that money is a means of trading stuff. They understand that money is a means of debt. So they understand that the Americans are 1.4-1.5 quadrillion dollars in debt. And this is very important, because that 1.4 quadrillion dollars actually do not exist. As you have seen in the movies Rollover and Domino Effect, as soon as Greece falls down, Greece no longer pays those $300 billion. So a lot of banks will have to write down, yes, we have a debt towards Greece, which Greece doesn't want to pay, and therefore we are going bankrupt. And so the domino effect will spread all around the world, and all the banks will collapse, and all the countries will collapse. Countries like Germany and France, which have a national debt of 200%, 300%, 400%, 1,000%, like Ireland and Iceland. Yes, Iceland has already gone bankrupt. They have escaped. And then the whole debt machine will come to America. And people will ask the Americans, yes, please pay us $1.4 quadrillion. And there are two ways to do that. One is to cut off two forests and print $1.5 quadrillion in $100 bills, and then the next day one loaf of bread, like the Americans say, will sell with $1 trillion or $1 billion or $1 billion. And so money will lose all significance. There will be no more money. All the other stuff is the same thing. The American will say this debt no longer exists because these are fraudulent money, this money do not exist. And then all the money, including the money from me and my father who are producing things, will cease to exist. And there will be the dream of communists and egalitarians, in the sense that everyone will live in a big jungle. There will be a big anarchy coming. So there is a game, a video game, which is called Star Control 3, and there are a race of people which are called the dog, and they are doing what exactly the Americans are doing. They are producing more and more stuff, and they are getting more and more into debt, because they are seeing all money as being debt, and by producing more stuff, they sell those stuff and they get more money, therefore they get into more debt. And the game explains this very fine, because there is a race called proxies, which are very smart people. They are like the Britons, and they keep everyone in their hegemonic cracks under control. And every race has something, you know, the dog like to produce a lot of stuff. So they get more and more into debt, and they are forever the slaves of the proxies, because they can never pay off the debt. The only way To pay off their debt is to start working. And the other races have similar things. The Clerc-Conter have a rock, and the proxies have stole the rock. Actually, that rock is a dragon egg, and from that dragon egg, the future queen of the Clerc-Conter has to be born. But she cannot be born, so the Clerc-Conter are forever slaves to the proxies, and so on. So you see how the whole stuff. So I understand, yes, Elada must fall, and they must, but they will not fall. That is something that people in Greece do not understand. That after all this show of 50 euros per day is over and that pensioners died staying at lines, yes, they say, I can only have 50 euros per day. But I will be happy in Romania to have 50 euros per day because I have 200 euros per month. So 120 euros as a pensioner was allowed to get from their bank accounts per day in Greece is very good for me. I will be very happy if I will be allowed to spend 5 million old lions per day. So goodbye, my friend.